Jazz, as you might know, features a lot of improvising.
They just make it up as they go along.
But if all you do is improvise, you get this. And not everyone's into that. So most people agree on a few things ahead of time. What song they're going to play, for instance. Enter the jazz standards.
What is it?
Simply, the jazz standards are a group of several hundred songs that jazz musicians will make an effort to learn.
What is it?
Lots of the songs come from early American pop music as well as from Broadway musicals, and players like Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker and Miles Davis played them in a jazz style in the 40s, 50s and 60s. There are also lots of compositions by those early jazz musicians that have become standards over time as well.
What is it?
Well, what they're for is to help jazz musicians call a song at a show that everyone's likely to know how to play. Most gigging jazz musicians know dozens of these tunes, so they function as kind of a shared repertoire. Now, quick interlude. Please subscribe. Thank you very much. Now, for a bit of Q&A. Most jazz standards are really old tunes, like 50 to 100 years old, so very few of them are in the mainstream consciousness. Even if you're not into jazz though, there are a couple of standards that you're probably gonna know. Someday My Prince Will Come from Snow White, My Favorite Things from The Sound of Music, and Summertime
And the living is easy.
are all songs that you may very well know the lyrics to. There are lots of reasons why a particular song became a jazz standard, but there were two things that really defined the fate of a particular tune. The first way is that beboppers or mainstream jazz performers used to play the songs a lot between 1940 and 1970. Lots of jazz standards can be traced to a specific recording that proved particularly popular. A lot of the time those recordings were by Miles Davis. The other way that a song might have become a standard is via the real book, which is a flawed but important quasi-encyclopedia of jazz. The real book came into existence in the 1970s at US music schools, and it sort of codified what was and wasn't a jazz standard. Most of the songs were good choices, but there were a few odd ones. Other genres of music do have standards, but most of the time they are niche or historically static genres. Things like bluegrass, classic rock, and 80s pop, for example. There aren't really many modern jazz standards. The real book really interrupted the oral tradition of learning jazz, and jazz's decline as a mainstream genre through the 1970s didn't really help. Here are a few tunes that might be considered more modern jazz standards. Feel free to disagree in the comments or add any other tunes that you think might make the cut. Personally, I'd love to see more modern songs get the jazz treatment. Miles Davis talked about this a lot towards the end of his career. He lamented that a lot of jazz musicians had become a bit stuck in their ways. Even in the 1980s, he was regularly recording songs from mainstream artists like Cyndi Lauper and Michael Jackson. Unfortunately, they didn't really catch on as standards in the way that they might have earlier in the century. Now that might change with this new breed of jazz musicians we have today, but who's to know? Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. This is the first in a series of videos that I'm making about jazz standards. Each video will take a couple of minutes, look at a song, its history, as well as a couple of important recordings. Here's a playlist of all of those videos. I will update it as they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.